Hello and welcome to today's presentation that I'm recording for Professor's World Peace Academy 50th anniversary. And I was asked question, what is the difference between economic opportunities between batteries and hydrogen? And so here is my quick answer to this rather complicated question. I apologize. Here is a lot of chemistry going on this slide. But I would like us to concentrate on here, on this side, where we talk about chemistry of cathodes in batteries. So batteries are similar to fuel cells that they have cathode and anode. That's one side generates electrons and another side receives electrons when they flow through the system. And in order to generate this potential that drives electrons from one side to another, we involve two sides with different potentials. And we can create this potential on the cathode side with different chemistries. So here, for example, is lithium manganese oxide, lithium, nickel, cobalt, oxygen here always present. And then the chemistry that we are going to be looking at today is lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese. And this is a really high performing cathode. So the difference is why we need different chemistries, because they perform differently. There are different things going on, different weights of the batteries. And so here we can see that we have chemistries of nickel, manganese, and cobalt. For example, it could be equally divided, or it could have a little bit more cobalt, a little bit less. And that's the point of our discussion today. We're going to talk about very important role of cobalt and resources, and also important role of lithium. So those are kind of examples we are going to be using today. And the information I'm taking is from Building a Sustainable Electric Vehicle Battery Supply Chain report from April 2020. And here is the people who were involved in this report. And it has a very interesting points, even though the data they are using is from 2018. And in 5 years, a lot of things have changed, but hopefully we can pick some ideas of what's going on there. And batteries and lithium is a very rapidly evolving field, but I think the core is still remains the same core of the issues. So when we are talking about creating lithium batteries, one of the supplies is cobalt. There are a couple of ways of producing cobalt from various ways. Then it goes to traders. You'll see why, because of the countries involved. And then it goes to refinery and reprocessing. And then it comes out as a product that could be used for a fuel cell. Same process is for lithium. It could be from hard rock, or it could be like in special baths. The salts are dissolved and then they're dried up, and then the crystals formed, and those crystals sent to refineries. And from refineries, again, it goes to the cathode manufacturing. And the cathodes look like this, kind of like a paste on the base material. And then those are rolled up or left as a flat material. So it could be cylindrical cells produced, pouches, or prismatic cells. Then it's like rolled in differently, serpentine way, sort of inside of cell. And then we manufacture packs, and then these packs will be integrated into vehicles. And right now it's a lot of cylindrical cells, much smaller format than here in the picture, and also pouches are very popular. And then, of course, there is a recycling, but we are not talking about that yet. And so here's the data. So there is going to be two slides with the data. One is on cobalt, and one is on lithium. And here what we have is reserves available by country known in 2018. And here we have a production in each country. So known reserves, the Democratic Republic of Congo has 49%, Australia 17%, Cuba has 7% of cobalt known, and then there are other countries have a little bit less. United States is not on this list. Then we have production in 2018. Again, Democratic Republic of Congo has a dominance with 70% of production. Australia is 4, Russia is 4, Philippines is 4. And so that is, then some of the companies were able to purchase those reserves. And the largest company is Glencore, has 10% of global reserves. And then the same company, Glencore, produces cobalt, 26% of the world production of cobalt. Then it's followed by China, molybdenum company, 8%. So as you can see, there is a lot of dominance in the market by the countries, so especially Congo here. Now, let's move here. Then lithium production, very similar picture, but different countries involved. Chile, Bolivia, Australia, and Argentina. Chile has 30, Bolivia has 26, so it's a Latin America. And Australia has 10%. Now, the production is the largest in Australia, so they're going really fast. And they're dominating market with 60%. 20% Chile, and Argentina is 8%. And a lot of that is purchased by China and produced into batteries. So as far as the companies go, there is a corporation, Mineral de Bolivia, problem is pronouncing, but it's 34%, and the rest are going to like 1%, small percentages. And production by company, so one company has reserves, the other company produces the end product, is Albemarle Corporation, 20%, then there is another company, 20%, and another 10. So it's a little bit better divided, but still there is a global dominance of several, just the 4 suppliers in the world. Now, and going back to hydrogen, as you can see, hydrogen is a big economy. It can be applied for storing hydrogen, and then the hydrogen can be used in fuel cells to produce electricity for residential, industrial, and commercial. And so then it could be used also in vehicles, and it could be used in vessels that or trucks going long distance, where batteries would be just all the weight that the truck can carry for that distance. Right, so very large distances are limited by the weight of the batteries. Although batteries are improving, but it's still kind of a challenge to have a long distance, or you can put liquid hydrogen on a boat and a boat can go, or even liquid hydrogen planes are being considered, as we discussed before. So this is a very broad economy. And on this slide, we can see the picture by Ballard I shared before. If you have a hydrogen economy, the electricity goes into electrolyzers. So someone has to make electrolyzers. Then it goes into storage tanks. So someone needs to make storage tanks. Then we have hydrogen stations. We have vehicles running on hydrogen. Again, the fuel cells could be made somewhere. And so what is happening, everyone in the world can participate in those things. Those are not impossible things. And here's my hydrogen station, or Cal State LA hydrogen station, where I work. And so we have electrolyzer, and there is a ton of different equipment that goes into electrolyzer. There is a steel tube, so someone has to make the steel tubes. There are compressors. There are chillers. So there are all kinds of things, and here's the dispensers that some special equipment goes into those dispensers. And so, as you can see, there is a plenty of different products different countries already know how to make. All right. And so what I would like to do is step back here and see how many countries are participating. Chile, Bolivia, Australia. And then here, Congo, Australia, Cuba, Philippines. Do we see Korea? Do we see Japan? Do we see Germany? Do we see France? And many, many other countries we don't see. And so the electrical or battery pathway is kind of limiting by how many companies, how many countries can benefit. Where with the hydrogen, we have many, many, many world economies that can benefit from hydrogen economy, not only because hydrogen economy is good for other reasons, but also because it's economically more viable for diversification of countries' participation, diversification of industries participating. So there is an opportunity to share the wealth of the hydrogen economy. And thank you, and I will be happy to answer your questions.